Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Strength Coach Podcast. My name is Anthony Retta, and today I am here with Devan McConnell, head performance coach for the UMass Lowell hockey team. And Devan and I just recorded a webinar called Digging Deeper with the Data, and we wanted to talk about that today. More importantly, why we did this. We did it to benefit the Humboldt Broncos junior hockey team that was involved in an accident. Their bus collided with a semi-trailer truck on April 6th, and 16 people died, 13 people injured, and we wanted to do whatever we could to help them out. So we're doing this webinar to sell, and we're going to also sell Devan's other webinar as a package with it. You can get that at continuefit.com or go to strengthcoachpodcast.com. We also did a t-shirt drive, Humboldt Strong t-shirt drive that ends on Monday, April 30th. But wanted to get Devan on to talk about this webinar, a little bit about what we're doing. So Devan, why don't you start out by just talking about why you wanted to do this?
Yeah, I mean, I think this tragedy hit everybody really hard, myself included, and kind of the way what I said earlier is, I used to be those kids, right? Like I played 4 years of junior hockey. I rode buses all over North America. I was those kids. I'm now, working in college hockey. I still ride the buses, and now I kind of am in charge of overseeing a lot of those kids and their safety and well-being. And then on top of it, I've got two little ones at home that are in love with hockey and will probably end up being those kids. So it just was something that just absolutely gutted me and has continued to be really hard to kind of handle for me. But I think that's why I reached out to you and wanted to put something together like this, just as a way to try to give back and help any way that we could.
Absolutely. And obviously I jumped on it as well, and we kind of came up with a couple ideas. And so just to tell everybody, first of all, we started a t-shirt drive with Custom Ink, and we'll have a link at Strength Coach Podcast, but it's and it's all over both of our social media. But we're just selling Humboldt Strong t-shirts that we designed, and all the money will go to the Humboldt Broncos Memorial Fund as well. And the same thing, we just recorded a webinar that Devan did called Digging Deeper with the Data. And we're going to sell that. And with all the proceeds going again to the Humboldt Broncos Memorial Fund, we're going to, Devan had recorded, we had done a workshop together in December called the Pro Coaches Clinic. And we're going to either, you'll have a choice to buy one of them or both of them as a package, and again, all the money will go to Humboldt, to the Memorial Fund. So Devan, first of all, thanks again for doing this and reaching out to me to get this done.
No, thank you very much, and quick shout out to Kevin Neild. He was, it was actually, he kind of reached out to me and said, hey, you should do something, and it was perfect because I didn't know what to do, but I want to do something, so I got to give a little credit to Kev too.
Absolutely. And you gave him a little dig in the webinar, too.
Well, you got it. He won their first round. He's probably flying high out in San Jose. Can't let him live it up too much.
There you go. Well, I'll remind everybody, the webinar is called Digging Deeper with Data, and we're going to have a link at strengthcoachpodcast.com and strengthcoach.com and all over our social media. But this was kind of a good continuation of what you did at Pro Coaches Clinic, which was more like what you guys are doing, but then how the average trainer can utilize some of the things that you're doing. And this was like a deeper dive into the different monitoring tools that you use, and we'll go over those in a second. What I loved about this was you did a great job of like showing everybody what the front end looks like and what the back end looks like. So let's just start out, I guess, with talking about monitoring and analytics and 3 reasons why we monitor.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to kind of start with this, and I think it's important to have a why, right? Start with why, Simon Sinek. For me, the three big reasons why monitoring is important, why we do it at Lowell is number one is to gain better insight, to have a better idea of what's actually going on. So we're not just guessing and throwing, stuff against the wall. The second reason I think is super important is to ask better questions, to continuously sort of be prompted to learn and to get better. I personally think that's really important. I'm kind of a lifelong learner is how I see myself. So I think asking better questions and becoming more knowledgeable is really beneficial and important. And then the third one is to attack the 1%. And that's kind of that aggregation of marginal gains idea. And I think it's just philosophically, I think it's crucial for me and for our program to try to find as many details that we can kind of stack on top of each other to try to improve. And so I think monitoring and sports science and data allows us to really find some little areas that we can try to take advantage of and improve upon.
Excellent. Now, you kind of broke it down, what you monitor into 4 parts. Talk to us about those 4 parts.
Yeah, the 4 main kind of areas that we look at as sort of to form a holistic kind of picture, a holistic system, is subjective data. Again, both front and back end. So we're looking at, wellness questionnaire type information. We're looking at session RPE data after the fact. Jump profiling, which we use on the front end to help sort of auto-regulate some of what we do in training. So we actually use reactive strength index in a way to sort of prescribe or make adjustments in the training process. But then on the back end, jump profiling has become really important for us to identify individual needs, within the team setting, kind of be able to put people in buckets a little more specifically when it comes to power development and force output work. Heart rate data is a big piece for us. We continue to use a team heart rate system we have for a long time and look at internal training load as our real sort of objective workload metric. And that's a really big piece of what we do. Again, we use it front end to drive some of what we do in training. We use it back end to analyze what's going on and make better decisions. And then the fourth one is velocity-based training and how we use that in the gym to drive, competitiveness and to prescribe, specific loads and speed zones based on, again, a little bit more of an individualized approach within the team setting.
Yeah, and we won't have to go over everything with, all 4, because, again, we have the other we have the 2 webinars, and we did do a podcast, and you do have your book, Intent, so that we talked to you about in January, right before the release. But what I was really interested in, or some of the things, we'll talk about some of the things that really kind of stood out to me, was one of the cool things is the jump profiling. And one thing that stood out to me was like, look, you have a group of kids here. This is not like this, everybody, how can I do it in groups? That's everybody's always excuse, right? You're using this in groups because you're getting this data, this reactive strength index, and you're kind of putting them, if I remember correctly, in like 3 different buckets. And you're able to in the training session, kind of put them in different periods in those buckets to say, okay, you guys are working on this, you're working on this. So just give us an idea of the more, go into a little deeper detail about the jump profiling.
Yeah. So on the front end, what we do, we look at reactive strength index. So RSI, which is we do a drop jump off of a bench. So standard 18-inch bench. And we basically get it, if you're not familiar with RSI, it's jump height divided by contact time. So our just jump mats have the plyo chip and we get contact time and we get this RSI number. And basically, whatever their score is for that day, and the way we do this, we do this jump just after dynamic warm-up, just prior to lift in season, okay?
Takes 2 minutes, right?
2 minutes max. Yeah, we have six mats, and we run 30 guys through it really, really quick. We punch these numbers into the computer real quick, and we get this dashboard up on the TV screen, and every player's basically face is up on the TV screen, and it's sort of a traffic light system. Their face will change colors based on their score, and without getting into all the numbers of it, if they score really, really well that day, way better than their average, they're a blue. If they're pretty good, they're better than their average. They're not outstanding, but they're better. They've got some hop in their jump today, and they're moving pretty well. They score a green. If they're just average, they're jumping what they normally jump. No big deal, no change. They're yellow. And then if they're low, if they're really, really sluggish today, their RSI score is low, they score a red. And we take that information and we immediately apply those color codes to an adjustment in their training. So if they're yellow, they're average. They don't make any adjustments to training. They continue on with whatever's prescribed for that week. So if we're doing 3 sets of 3 hang cleans at 70%, you just keep on doing what you do. If they're green, they're a little bit better than average. Their central nervous system's got a little more pop than normal. Then we increase the load, or they have the option to increase, 1 or 2 sets of work, depending on which one they respond better to. So they're basically saying, hey, you're a little better than normal. When we come to our power and strength work, hit the gas pedal just a little bit. If they're blue, they are jumping through the roof today. They're on fire. It's a window of opportunity to get better. We're going to hit the gas pedal. We're increasing 10%. And on the flip side of all of that, if they're red, so they came in today and they're sluggish and they're fatigued and their jump is terrible, they're going to take 1 or 2 sets off. We're basically just going to cut back on volume. We're trying to maintain intensity, but they're going to go about their work and just cut back on volume. So right away, we're able to use this jump profiling system in an actionable way to make sort of immediate adjustments and bucket individuals without 30 people doing 30 different things. Now we can make some real quick adjustments to what we're doing in training and respect where their readiness levels are.
Yeah, I love it the way you did it, like with the orange. Like, okay, you guys are just doing the prescribed program. Hey, green, add 2 sets or increase the load 10%. Blue, you can do even more. Red, you're going to dial it back. One question though, do you see guys like coming in and getting like, oh man, this guy's always blue, or this guy's always red, or somebody going from blue to red, and you're like, God, that guy was out drinking last night. Do you see that a lot, like a big variation?
No, because of the way we have it set up, is they're if they did it today, today's score is and the color that comes up is relative to the last month's average. So it's a rolling average, so it constantly changes. So if they continue to jump really, really well, that becomes, if today's the blue and they do it the next day and they're jumping really well again, it's only a green, and then they do it again and their jump's even better. But because things keep going up, now that's their average.
Okay.
So it's weighted based on their individual averages, and that adjusts over time.
Nice. Okay, cool. Let's get a little to heart rate data, which was, kind of refreshing as well, because you brought up some things, and we're going to go over them, that I thought were, wow, so many people can use heart rate data, relatively easy. But you had a really couple good things we want to talk about. One was adding science to competition. Give us an overview of that.
Yeah. So one of the things, this is sort of a separate topic, but we've really been focusing this start of our off season on culture and leadership and team building and just some things in that area, some of the intangible stuff. Competition has been a big component for us in training. But I'm always leery of like the circuit competition type stuff. It never works for me. It always turns into a mess. And I like the science stuff, the sports science. So the way we've kind of incorporated the two is to like today, actually in training today, we performed density circuits. And so essentially what we did is we had groups of 4, and each group had 4 exercises they had to get through, 3 sets of 10 of each. It was a front squat, a bench, chin up, and a rack pull. And everybody had the same weight on the bar, so it's all pretty standard, cut and dry. But the thing is, instead of just racing through 10 reps as fast as they can and who can get done at the end, an individual could not go again. They could not do their second set or their third set until their heart rate basically came down below 70%. So we have the heart rate screen up on the TV, and they do their 10 reps, their 10 front squats, and then they got to go sit down and they got to try to lower their heart rate as quickly as possible. And the team that could finish everything the fastest, which basically means they could recover the quickest, wins. And then based on, if you're in first or fifth place, you had different type of conditioning work you had to do at the end. So that's one way we kind of use that heart rate data in an actionable sense not just to collect information, but to actually drive some of what we're doing in training.
Yeah, I love it. It's like almost like, you can't hand the baton off until your heart rate's down.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
And I was fascinated by the warm up and game comparison heart rates. Tell that story. This is a great story.
Yeah. So I have a graph in there where I show heart rate data. We wear it in games. And the system we use can break it down by 5-minute segment. And so it gives this great picture of color coded, above 90% you're in the red, 80 to 90 you're in the yellow, et cetera, et cetera. And you can see the first period, the second period, and the third period really distinctly. And you see all this red because guys get up into the 90% range when they're on the ice during games all the time. But this individual athlete came to me after the game and said, Dev, my legs just felt so bad in the first period, so heavy. I felt great in the second and third, but man, I was like skating in mud. So we looked at his heart rate data, and what you see on the graph that we show is in warmups, he doesn't get above like 70%. He's in the green. He doesn't even get close to the workload that he needs to get to in the game. And I said, well, listen, you essentially didn't warm up and then tried to jump into a game and go 30 miles an hour on your first shift. Like, what do you expect your legs to feel like? He's like, yeah, no kidding. Like, no wonder they felt so bad. And the reason why you felt better in the second is basically because you made them feel bad in the first, and then you had the intermission to recover and sort of handle that. And now your nervous system and your metabolic system's ready to go. We need to up your intensity in warm up. And so in subsequent games, he basically finishes his warm up with a few stops and starts and some sprints and really tries to jack up his heart rate, make his legs feel bad in warm up, but then he can recover during intermission and he feels much better in the first period.
It's so funny because it's like, why didn't we think of this sooner? It reminds me of golfers. Like, yeah, usually around the third or fourth hole, they get going. Yeah, moron, because you didn't warm up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, we wouldn't know that in hockey because we could see, we're moving around. We're like, cool, we're getting ready, But, that was it. Got to go over the goalie. This is amazing, too, is like looking at what they're doing and being able to shape what they're doing in practice as well.
Yeah, so I talk about, as sort of a case study, I talk about goalies and how goalies should be very alactic aerobic. They should basically be, that's what they do. They stand around, and I was a goalie. I can say this. It's true. We stand around for a while in a game, and then the puck comes down and we have a few seconds of really high intensity, explosive work. And then the puck goes the other end. We stand around, and that's what it should look like. And then I show two graphs though I show a game graph, and it basically shows that it's mostly kind of aerobic, heart rate up to, touches 90%, a few spikes, but it's basically kind of hang out in the green and blue area. And then I show a graph of a goalie in practice, and it doesn't look anything like that. It's basically do nothing for 30 minutes. And then these 2, 4 or 5 minute blocks of really high intensity work, and then do nothing again. And it's like, I basically, the point was I was able to take this data and take this picture to our coaching staff and say, listen, this is what a game looks like. This is what we need them to do in a game. This is what practice looks like. This does not prepare them physiologically to play a game. It's like saying, go run a marathon, and that's going to prepare you to run a 100-meter sprint. I mean, the marathon's hard, but that's not going to make you a sprinter. You know what I mean? So we need to look at what the demands are and relate that back to practice. And then we were able to take that and change some of how we approach practice with our goalies, just how many shots they got at a time before we took them out, and even how many goalies we carried based on how much work and rest we wanted guys to have.
Yeah, awesome. Even, I guess you can also be like, okay, you're going to go, let's get you up and down, up and down, up and down, practice your butterflies right now for 30 seconds or whatever, right? I mean, you could do those things. Cool. Yeah. Let's talk about, not too much into velocity-based training, but what I liked about what you were also talking about here, and this is a little similar to earlier with the heart rate adding science to competition, but, you were driving competitiveness using the velocity-based training. Talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, velocity-based training's awesome. Tools that we use all the time, especially with our stronger athletes. Once they're kind of strong enough, now we try to prescribe more based on speed zones, and the whole auto-regulatory idea behind that, and adjusting kind of things based on where guys are at. But I think the biggest thing about velocity-based training, to me, the most important thing, and again, in the team setting, when I've got 30 guys, is the competitiveness that they inherently have. And when they see the numbers that each other, that they're getting when they're doing hang cleans or snatches or whatever, it drives competitiveness within the group and gets them to push just so much harder and so much faster than if it's just me telling them to move quicker, move faster. And we're fortunate we use GymAwares, and we're able to use their leaderboard system. So again, I can put this up on the TV screen, and in real time, the athletes see the actual speeds that guys are hitting on whatever exercise, hang cleans. And so they see their picture pops up there, and it says you're in first place, and there's a little bell and a little trophy, and they get all excited. But it's a way that within that team setting, we can really drive intent and drive competitiveness that I think is just so crucial, to really any athlete. If you can hone in on those things and really take advantage, I think it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I really like the way you did this program or did this webinar in terms of showing the front end and the back end and showing some of these videos and the real time with the videos of the guys jumping, et cetera. It was very cool. Let's finish up with, you have two different approaches, like one's an off-season approach, one's an in-season approach. Talk to us about how you divide those up.
Yeah, I mean, it really, the in-season from a sports science standpoint is more about monitoring training loads, monitoring readiness, assessing things, and providing feedback. It's more on the back end side of things, for me at least. There's some things we do on the front end, the subjective questionnaire stuff, and the RSI jumps certainly on the front end drive some stuff. But mostly we're looking at on the back end, what's happening, what do we need to adjust moving forward, so that we're as ready to perform and play on Friday night, on game night, as possible. But we're also looking at the big picture from a long-term development standpoint and make sure we're progressively getting better. But in the off season, we use a lot of this information way more on the front end stuff side of things, like I talked about earlier, using that heart rate data to really drive and dictate work to rest ratios and being able to use it in creative ways, like we have with the density circuit competition stuff and things like that. So we just try to use that information up front as much as possible. And I think that the great thing is the athletes really enjoy using the sports science data. And it's one thing for them to be hooked up to the heart rate monitors and see the data afterwards. And I try to be really aware of educating them and talking to them about what's going on and why. But when they actually have this information in front of them and it's up on the TV screen and they're using it in training, it creates a lot of buy-in and a lot of buzz, and they have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I think, obviously with this generation, they're so used to this stuff. So it's not this big, scary thing for them either. So
it's not. Yeah, it's not, especially when you're open about it and you talk to them about what it means. They are. You're right. They're used to technology, and it's something that they've grown up with. And so when they know the whys behind what you're doing and what they're doing, I think it's a great tool.
Cool. Well, I'll remind everybody, we just did this webinar, Digging Deeper with the Data, and we're doing this as a fundraiser along with a t-shirt sale. You can see everything at continuefit.com. We're having it on Devan and my social media right now. It's going to be plastered all over. We're going to give you guys information on where to buy this, and you can buy the Pro Coaches Clinic lecture that Devan did about monitoring for the masses. We'll give you an opportunity to buy both of them. And you could, obviously, if you haven't gotten Devan's book, these are all things that you could start to kind of really help you to understand using the data. So, Dev, thanks so much for doing this, man. We really appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out to me to help you be a part of this. And thanks for doing the webinar.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me, man. I appreciate it. And all the work on your end, just so everyone knows, Anthony was fully in charge of the t-shirts, so he gets full credit for that. So I appreciate it, and thanks for helping me to do something just to honor the victims and the tragedy up there. It means a lot.